What's up, party people? It's your girl, Catherine. So here we go again. I'm about to break down episode 8 with Mariah. She is the creator of Mother of Wild. It is a fantastically beautiful site that does prints and also clothing, personalized clothing and personalized prints of babies who have passed and of all gestational ages and even after birth of child death. And in the episode, we talk about how this was created, her calling, things that mean things that matter the most to her and her perspective and her journey after the loss of Noah. And if you haven't listened to it, it's beautiful. You should listen to it. It is extremely spiritual and faith-based. She walks very closely with the Lord, with God. And this is her perspective on that way of proceeding through life after loss. If it's not for you, I totally get it. That's totally fine. Especially right after a loss, I think that we question our spirituality, our faithfulness, our religion. And I'm going to use terminology because I think there's a difference between all of them. I think religion is following the set of rules that was given to you by a specific church. Lutheran, Protestant, Catholic. I'm Catholic. I think that's religious, following your religion. I think faith-based, to me, faith is what you believe in. For me, it's God and Jesus Christ. That's my faith. Spiritual, I think, is a connection to another layer of humanity that may not be linked necessarily straight to God, but I think that there is another level of spirituality that you may hear me mention sometimes that I think, and I'm going to get into this actually in episode, I think like 28 of the podcast, about what does that look like? What does your spirit look like? What is it open to? That makes sense. So if I use these terminologies, this is because of my own brain, and they could probably mean the same thing to everybody. I don't know. That's just me. I'm gonna go with that. Again, this is my experience. I'm not a priest. I am not a professional. I'm not an expert. I'm not here to diagnose. I'm not here to say what you're doing is wrong. And I'm not here to say what I'm doing is right. I'm just saying this is my experience, my takeaway, what I've learned. And I'm telling it to you so that it may help, or it could resonate with you, or you just, don't feel alone in how you feel. Okay. So always keep that in mind when you're listening to me run my mouth. Ooh, it's weird. So what I'm going to do is break down episode 8. What happens when I do that is I have notes. That's like what I'm looking at on what Mariah and I spoke about. And I'm going to kind of break it down by the topic. It may not be exact, but it's going to give you a good idea. And I'm going to elaborate a little bit more on what I said and what she said in there. The video is not up for the podcast because Mariah's camera wasn't working for that particular episode. So it's just the audio. So if you haven't listened, it's on the video before this or on anywhere you can listen to podcasts. So give it a listen if you haven't yet. But if you haven't, totally fine. I'm still going to cover some stuff that you might like. Mariah, like I said, has a ministry, and it's very heavily based on her faith. She, right after Noah's death, I think she said 3 months out, she jumped right into creating Mother of Wild. And it was basically her asking God for purpose. Let's face it, we're supposed to be mothers to living children. And when they die, our purpose goes right out the window. And we have to adjust to what our purpose is here on earth, besides being the mother of an angel. And that, for a lot of us, it's hard. I'm going to be honest. I was very heavily into work. My purpose was work my whole life, no matter what I was doing. I've owned a couple businesses. I currently own one. And that was my purpose, was to make a difference in people's lives when it came to what I knew best. And for me, it was the fitness industry, helping people in their choices and helping people work in it. And that was me. And I had started to set the stage for having Brody. Like I'm a contractor, like I run my own business. So I wasn't going to get maternity leave. So I had started a podcast that was going to be my purpose while he was here, so I could have a little bit more leeway to not work as much 24/7 with a new baby. And then my purpose was going to switch over to him, to be his mother. When he died, I became his mother, and I had to figure out my purpose as far as what that looked like as being his mother here on earth while he's not here. My purpose wasn't so much around work anymore. Let me explain. I still work. I still love what I do, but that was no longer the end all be all for what my purpose was here in the world. With that said, when Brody died and was born, not only was my purpose to become his mother, my purpose was to honor him as best as I can and to help others. That's what you're listening to right now. My purpose was to start the podcast. My purpose was to start this YouTube, to share my experiences, to let people know they're not alone, to be very open and transparent and real about it. Do I think Brody died so I could live out this purpose? No. Mm-mm. Do I think I found my purpose because Brody died? Yes. If you need to rewind that, feel free. And what's weird, and I talk to a lot of lost moms and a lot of lost parents, and they've always felt deep down that they were supposed to do something with their lives. And they could never figure out what it was. They just knew that they were going to be called to something bigger, and they just couldn't figure out what it was. And then their baby died. And then like, wow. And now I feel called to do this. So we talk about that here in this episode, and the jury is still out. Do you feel that our fates are predetermined? Do you feel that your baby was always going to die? This was your story, their story. I struggle with that. Here's why. If my baby was always supposed to die, was Michael's? Was my mom's grandchild always supposed to die? Was my sister's first nephew supposed to die? Why, if it was predetermined for me, did that include the suffering of others? Just hear me out. This is me processing. Was I chosen? Were we chosen because we could handle it? I've been asked that question before. God chooses the strong ones. For me, I don't think God did this. I don't believe that God took my son. I don't think God took my son or took yours or took anybody's babies. I don't feel that is our God. Now, if you knew it was going to happen, maybe. If he equipped us with grace and people around us and spoke through doctors and did all the things to help us get through it, yeah, maybe. It's a lot. It has derailed everything I've ever believed. And I will not lie to you. Right out the gate, I was very confused. Like, how could you do this to me? I've been a good servant. I've had a good relationship with you my whole life. I'm a good person. And then that would mean that babies dying and people dying, people that you love dying would be punishment. It's not. It's not punishment. It's part of life. For centuries, babies have been dying. For centuries. Think about it. Think about how many more there probably were before modern medicine. And for centuries, people have been praying for things and they don't get it. Just because you pray hard doesn't mean you get it. That's terrifying because I always so trusting. I was so calm about my pregnancy. I was like, God, you got this. You got this. And we're going to talk about premonition too. Like that's another thing. So this conversation with Mariah was really interesting. She's very strong in her faith. And I'll admit I'm probably not as strong and we may not see it the same. And that's okay. Like I love hearing different perspectives and you may not even agree with stuff I'm saying and that's fine too. But as we move into this conversation, I urge you to have an open mind and have an open heart. And if you're confused about where you stand with God, I hope this helps. And if you think you know where you stand with God, please still listen because I think that things are still said that are important. we're all trying to survive. We're all trying to live a life that isn't painful. And in my experiences, the ones that do move forward have light in their life. And whatever that source is up to you. But for me, it is keeping close with God. It is eyes on Jesus. It is that sign of love and peace and hope that works for me. Ask me this right after Birdie died? No. As a matter of fact, I have a grief therapist who's fantastic. She's also a lost mom. Like you probably heard me talk about her. And she offers Christian-based teachings with your counseling if you want it. Out the gate, I was like, you leave that shit out. No. Don't know where I stand. I don't know what's going on. That's okay if you were like that too. Listen, trying to process and trauma and death and like the worst of the worst has happened to us. Like your child died. Like I'm pretty sure, I mean, there's terrible things that happen every day, but like categorically, this is pretty rough. But there was a moment, and I want to say it was about 5 months that I said, I'm ready to integrate God again. I'm ready to talk about it. Let's go. It was really helpful, really helpful. It released a lot of anger, I guess. And then that thing though, where you're like, I don't have control over anything. Things just happen. You just have to be in control of your reaction to it. Fear. But then, sometimes it's a little comforting. Who knows? I'm rambling now. Let's get into the episode. Okay. So she started Mother of Wild about 3 months out. She felt that it was, she was a new person, that this was God showing her what her purpose was. And she prayed and said, what do I do with this? And it came to fruition, and it was sadly popular, and it got a big following. She said something like, this is your story. What are you going to do with it? And I thought that was so freaking powerful. I decided for me, I didn't want Birdie's death to be my story. I wanted his life to be my story. What he taught me, how I got over his death, not over it, but you know what I mean, how I processed it, and my journey in healing. I'm still standing and still helping others. And like, that's my story, not his death. And now what am I going to do with this story? And if you are thinking that too, like, what is my story and what I'm going to do with it? Good. I want you to think about that, because finding purpose for your pain helps so freaking much. It's something that it gives you something to do. It brings you some joy, and it gives you a way to honor your child every single day. And maybe it's not every day, maybe it's week, month, whatever. But if you're looking for something, I think trying to figure out what you're going to do with your story is important. I really do. Now, if you don't want to do shit with your story, also fine. Still a great parent. Still love your baby, and your baby loves you. 100%. Speaking from my own personal experiences, that it helped me to find purpose, to do something with my story. And yours could be anything. Donating to a charity, getting something named after your child, doing arts and crafts, and, or even just talking to other lost moms, becoming part of support groups, or like whatever it is. Like, what's your story and what are you going to do with it? I think that's really powerful. And then she follows up with, no answer will bring them back. I don't know. Were you guys insane like me in the very beginning when I was like, if I just talk about this enough, he's going to just reappear? I'm not taking any notes. Why do I do this? Sorry about the pen. Like, they're not coming back. What we are talking about now, and this is a really serious episode. Sorry, guys. What we're talking about now is moving forward with our babies. And what does that look like? We're not moving on, moving forward. And some of you say like moving through life. All right, whatever. But moving forward is what I say, not being stuck in this one moment in time, the death. Move forward with their life. talks about autopsies. And I know that's something that we're all faced with in the hospital, where you were freaking out and not knowing what the hell's going on. I was on Xanax. I'm not gonna lie to you. They gave me Xanax because I was flipping. And I was loopy as hell after that. I'd never had one before, I don't think. We did an autopsy because we had to know. We had to know what was wrong with him. He was so perfect. And part of me was really, I don't know, I'm not going to say hoping. I think if he had a genetic issue or something blatantly wrong with him, it may have been easier, his death may have been easier to digest. Or at least I was like, okay, he wasn't going to make it anyway. Like he just wasn't, going to work out for him. But to the fact he's perfect. And now, I find out that it was my doctors, and like there was a whole bunch of issues that they missed. Be careful when you find out things. But I needed to know. And then not only that, I wanted to know what I was dealing with moving forward. Because if it was a genetic issue that was caused by me or by Michael or us together, like I wanted to know. But not everybody does the autopsy, and that's okay. Honestly, I truly think there should be a little bit more information, like a booklet, a pamphlet, a presentation in the hospital, so that you have a good idea of what you're deciding. Oh God, the idea of horrific to even think about what they do. Ugh. And I had really struggled with that, you guys. I had to physically just be like, it's not him, it's not him, it's not him. It's crazy that we have to make those decisions. If you didn't do it, totally fine. If you did, feel free to comment on why you're thankful that you did. And if you didn't, why you're thankful you didn't. Like she says that she wished that they did not. I don't regret it. I don't. I mean, if Michael dropped dead, I'd be like, cut him open. Let's find out why. What the hell happened here? Yeah, like maybe that's just me. I don't know. I know that his spirit left his body, and it was just his little shell. And I get that. It's horrible. And I just try not to think about it. So we're moving on. She said we're not supposed to understand it. We're not able to understand what happened to us. We're not able to understand like the magnitude and like what happens and all this stuff. And it's like our brains were not formed to understand. Like God doesn't want us to. Such an interesting idea. And she talks about the book of Job. If you have not read the book of Job, I think you should. I think it's challenging, but there's like the Bible app, and they can actually do like a journey. Like you can read every day, and they do like this whole stuff. It's really cool. If you want it, just comment or message me and I can show you where to go. But it's about Job and his suffering, how God took away everything from him. And it was kind of like a thing where like, did he pray? Was he righteous because he wanted all these good things to happen? Or was he just righteous no matter what? So when all these things were taken from him and he still praised God, it was a testament to the fact that he praised the Lord, and he didn't do it so that he would get gifts and get good things in life. And I had to take a really, really good look in the mirror on that one. Was I praying to get things? Was I good to be rewarded? I don't know. It's something to think about. So now what does that mean? Your baby's been taken away. My son has been taken away. Yet I still walk closely with the Lord. I still pray. I still have hope, and I still have trust. Kind of wild. And I now know that I may not get what I want in this life. But for me, to walk without it is worse than walking with it. That makes sense. Anywho, she was angry with God, as we all are, and then kind of felt like she was being chosen. And I think a lot of you feel like, I've heard a lot of you feel that way, that you were chosen for this, that you were one of the strong ones, that you can get through it, that this was your story, you were chosen. Up to you to decide that. For me, it's weird. It's weird, guys. I mean, I've always felt like my life was going to be unique. I don't know how to explain it, but I never in a million years dreamed this. Was I chosen? No, I don't think so. Not for me. Anyway, you know your own faith. You don't know your own faith until you experience pressure. God, that's true. This is a test. This is a test to how you feel about things. It's a test on your faith. This pressure, this stress, this horrible thing that happened to you. None of us asked for this. By the way, I don't want to be tested. I know you don't. But here we are, and we have to make decisions now on how we're going to navigate this. She had to move out of the why me phase. Whew, did you guys do that? Ooh, wow. I think I still do. Why me? Why did this happen to me? And I think a lot of us out the gate think we're being punished because we look around, we're like, well, that person's a terrible human being. Why do they have 3 healthy living children? What, they suck, you know? That would mean that people are rewarded with things as well. If you're saying like, we're punished by getting things taken away. That's not what's going on here. My opinion, bad shit happens in life. There's murders. There's things going on out there that like are horrific. These people aren't being punished. No. It still pisses us off that, assholes have kids, and ours are dead. I get it. Totally get it. The why me thing, that's a victim mentality. And I try to stay away from that, but it doesn't mean it doesn't creep up. Like when you're sitting with all your friends and your old friends and your college buddies, and all of them have like all these beautiful kids, and some of them had experienced loss, but not to the magnitude of yours. And you're kind of just like, wow, of all these people, why am I the one that had this shit happen? I get it. It's normal, totally normal for you to think that. She says, if I allow it, God has a plan for our baby's life. If I allow it, God has a plan for our baby's life. Okay, so what does that mean? You have to be willing to follow out that plan that you're called to do. That's scary. The night before I was supposed to launch the podcast, which was on Birdie's 6-month birthday, I woke up sweating, night terrors, but feeling like something's in the room. That was a bit too much info, but you know what I'm saying? Like I felt very fearful that I shouldn't be doing this. And what did I do? Took that as a sign that I should be doing it. And I did it. And I think when we become the most fearful about something, it's probably an indication that we should probably move forward with it. If we allow God to show us what we should be doing, I think we can experience the plan that is our baby's life, as big or as little as that is. I mean, I'm not saying go start a podcast. This is your girl's field. This is why I did this. If your field is teaching, if your field is art, if your field is numbers or an attorney, like stay in your field, but just change the content. Do you know what I mean? Just an idea. Getting yourself out of the hole. Now, I heard this right in the beginning. I went to something called accelerated resolution therapy, which was rapid eye movement, brain work, to try to help me with trauma from the day that I found out he was dead. And the therapist told me that she does not work with people who aren't willing to get themselves out of the hole. And I thought that was super interesting. She said, because they identify themselves with the dark, with the death, with the sad, with the sorrow. And they are unwilling to be anything other than that. And you can't help people who are like that. So I was like, wow, interesting. So a lot of times when somebody experiences massive grief and loss, they identify with it and they dig the hole and they sit in it, and it's easy to just sit there forever. To me, way more painful than trying to be happy or see the light. Whew, that dark hurts, man. But it creeps in. She said people play the biggest role in their own suffering. Like, I can see that. And I can tell you right now, I talk a lot about grief vibe. There are just people whose grief vibe, it doesn't work for me. It brings me down. To each their own, by the way. Grieve however the hell you want to grieve. That's totally fine. If that works for you, great. Doesn't mean it works for me. And maybe my positive spin and hope-based stuff doesn't work for you, it's so interesting to me that nobody is going to be the source of your happiness. Therefore, nobody's going to be the source of your sorrow, which means who is? Yourself. You're responsible for your happiness. You're also responsible for your own sadness. Powerful, because that means you are the one who has to make the decision on what you're going to do about it. Do y'all feel? So how are you going to get yourself out of the hole? If you like the suffering, if you like the suffering, fine, stay there. Go, do it. If you don't, you have to figure out how you're going to dig yourself out. And it's hard. You got to take one tiny step at a time. It doesn't happen overnight, you guys. One little step, a therapy session, a brisk walk. And then eventually you'll find that the dark is still there, but it's not as much as the light. Because in the beginning, it's like super, super dark, and the light's poking itself in a little bit, switches. Light and the dark tries to poke itself in a little bit. But you have to do the work to do that. And that's talk therapy. That's trauma recovery therapy. It's cleaning up your diet, laying off maybe a ton of alcohol. I love me some wine, but it didn't make me feel great the next day. Being healthy, getting rid of toxic people, doing all the things you possibly can to better yourself and to carry on. Because if you sit in that hole, then no one's going to know about your baby. Nobody. Because you're just not going to be able to talk about it. And at least not in a good way, or at least how your baby would want you to talk about them. Again, I'm not preaching. Do whatever you want to do. This works for me. Yeah, identifying with the death is tempting. I think there was a moment I was like, I got to step back. Like, everything I'm doing is around the death. Everything I'm saying and thinking is around the death. I had to say, no. I need it to be around his life. It needs to be around his life. What does that look like? Yeah, of course I'm going to talk about him dying. And of course I'm going to talk about what happened. And of course I'm going to talk about, the grief and the sorrow and all that stuff. Yeah, because it's part of this whole thing. But like, it's focused more on his life. How am I honoring his life? And not so much as identifying myself as the mother of a dead child, the mother of a baby who died, who's helping other people. It's like, kind of like, her baby died and she's now the host of this, or she's that, whatever it is. That works for me. She said you could have a good future, but you can also have a good now, which I thought was super interesting. Damn, Mariah dropping the little nuggets of info on this one. I think what happens is we look so forward to the future. When are we going to feel better? When can we try again? When are we going to have a living child? When is this going to hurt less? And we're always waiting for that future. When I think her point was, we could actively try to fix our now, to try to feel better now, have a good now. And that was really interesting. And I was thinking about that. Like, if I never went on to have any living children, I need to create a reality where I was okay and I was having a good now, and not wait until I have them to have a good life. Super, super challenging. Super challenging. Staying present, staying in the moment was important for me. Because if I thought too far in the advance, I started to get like, oh, that when that day comes, then I'll be happy. And when I fell backwards and thought about the past, the world came crashing down. So staying super present and trying to make my reality now good, and being okay with where I was. Maybe not okay, because I'm not okay with my child dying, but maybe just trying to have a good reality now was important to me. So I made sure every day that I was doing something that brought me some sort of happiness. Here we are. Moving on. My old school notepad. Almost there, guys. So hear that puppy behind me? It was at my stomach. He was yawning. Oh God, anybody want a puppy? So she said something interesting as well. You'll know when you're in a comfortable spot. You won't be completely healed and it doesn't fully go away, but you'll know when you're in a comfortable spot. Boom. Boom. That I agree with. Comfortable, loose term, but where you can function, where you would like to go with your future, bringing your baby with you, still in pain, still broken. It doesn't go away. You're not going to ever be fully healed, but there could be a level of healing consistently as you move forward. I really like that. You know, I'm a really time-based person. Like, I think it was just a few weeks after I'd already connected with another lost mom. And I was like, hey, when am I going to be able to come up for air? When am I going to just feel a little bit better? Like I can take a breath. She was like 10 to 12 weeks. I was like, holy shit. And guess what? It was 11 weeks that I was like, oh, fog is lifting, feeling better. What am I going to do with this now? What am I going to do with this pain now? It took me that long, but that's okay. She was talking about how people, like our spaces on social media, and we're consistently asking each other what's going on and how are you and what's your baby's name and what's the signs and da da da. Other people don't do that, and they don't realize it's very simple. Like, how much did he weigh? What did he look like? Did he have any hair? Nobody asked me those questions. Nobody asked me those questions. Crazy. So I think it's important that we kind of spread the word on what people should be asking us. You know, it's not, when are you going to try again? What happened? How did you not know? No. What do you weigh? What do you look like? Do you look like Michael? Do you look like you? Like, ask these questions, and they don't do that. She said it changes how we pray. For me, it changed how I prayed. I still ask for things. I still, you know, tell God what my heart's desires are. You know, I pray for a living baby. You know, I pray for peace. I pray for the things, you know, things that I want. I pray for health for my family. But I understand that may not happen. So I pray for grace and strength to handle the things that don't go my way. And that was a huge thing. Like, I just pray for the strength to handle this. Pray for the strength to continue and to keep going. Some days it's really hard, you guys. I don't want to talk about this all the time. And I pray for the strength to keep moving forward to do it. Not, hey, I want this to be an epic hit. No, just I want to continue to help people. And so please guide me, you know? She said we're still broken, but can still be used. Very powerful. Our voices can be used, you know, our knowledge can be used, our experience can be used, even though we're broken. We don't have to be all fixed to be used. I think the most powerful people ever are broken as hell. Think about it. Think about the people who have the most influence, the people who do really great work and are making change. Those people usually have a pretty rough story. Yeah, super broken, but you can still be used to do good. I think that's really powerful and something to think about. You have humility and want to help people. Like, I'm open, transparent about what happened. Like, my life's not perfect. I'm devastated. I'm heartbroken, but I'm here to help. That is so, like, on another level, the way you connect with other human beings. Like, if you came to me like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. My baby died. I'm completely devastated and lost, but I'm dedicated to helping you get through this. Oh, wow. Isn't that better than someone saying, fully healed, I'm perfect, I'm over it, and I'm strong as hell, and I'm going to coach you to the end? No, it doesn't work for me. It may work for you. She said she didn't feel strong at all when she first started. And I think that is like such a good metaphor even for anything. Like, you don't feel strong when you go to the gym. You got to keep lifting weights and eventually you'll feel strong. I mean, kind of cheesy comparison, but you don't feel strong going in this. And I always say, do something even though you have no motivation, because if you do it, the motivation will come. Think about that for a second. You don't feel like doing anything, but when you do it and you start seeing that feedback, you get motivated to continue to do it. So maybe if we just go for it, the strength will follow. And I think that is actually really interesting, especially for me. When I first started the podcast, I was like, what the hell am I doing? Who cares? I'm just going to go. I'm broken as hell. I'm not strong. Let's do this. And as I continue to do it, I feel a little bit stronger because I've connected with so many of you. I've heard so many of your stories, and you guys arm me with strength, and you arm me with this kind of experience that helps me feel stronger. That's literally it. She said at first, when people started reaching out to her, even other lost parents, as a lost parent, she tried to take away their burden and take away their pain, and quickly realized that you can't. And I think that is true. So like in the very beginning, I reached out to other moms, and it was more like I wanted hope and I wanted light, but I didn't really feel like they could say or do anything to fix me. But now that I'm a year out and another lost mom comes to me, and I'm now spewing this wisdom on them that got spewed on me, I can see where you think you might be able to help or fix. But remembering where your mentality was right after loss is like, oh yeah, wait, I didn't believe that at all. Okay, never mind. All of this, like, even if you don't feel called to do anything, and I say this all the time, you do whatever you're comfortable with. Do whatever you feel like works for you. And if it's nothing, fine, totally fine. And if it's making a billboard, go for it. Like, some of us even quit our jobs and go completely different courses. Like, whatever you feel called to do it. And if you don't feel called, that's also fine. We talked about dreams and intuition. And a lot of lost moms have dreams about their babies and an intuition. I mean, for me, I never told anybody really about my pregnancy. I never finished the nursery. I never really bought any clothing. I never really looked at baby things. Like, I was like, I'll believe it when I see it. He'll get here, and then I will do all those things. And I just wonder if that was intuitively something that I knew he wasn't going to make it here. And then that would mean it was predestined, right? So it's like such a weird, but we all have dreams. And I think I've talked to other moms of living children, and they too have dreams though. Everyone has jitters and fears and anxiety when you're pregnant. And I think that could be misconstrued as an intuition with your baby that's died. But I will say that I'm not opposed to the idea that some of us had an innate, like a weird feeling that you can't describe, almost like, I don't know if this baby's going to be earthside. And a lot of us feel that way. It's like crazy. And a lot of dreams. I had 0 dreams about Brody. No dreams pregnant, no dreams about anybody dying, nothing. 0. I don't know. At least that I remember. So, an intuition thing, a dream thing, like that's across the board. I've heard this a lot. So if you had those things, you're normal for us. And she said something, people who are not intentional with their own healing will not be support systems for yours. Be mindful of who you allow to pour into you during the time of grief. Very important. I'm a big advocate for finding your grief vibe. Find the people who will help you in your health and wellness journey. Find the people who are going to be there that are going to vibe with your energy, your grief vibe. I got to tell you, when I first came on the scene here, I did not resonate with a lot of the grief and loss pages. There was something about it that didn't work for me, and I felt almost worse scrolling IG until I realized that this wasn't the right grief vibe for me. And again, everyone's different, and there's nothing wrong with your grief vibe. Just some people resonate and connect a little bit more with certain types of ways of coping that others don't. And that's totally fine. And I particularly like this sucks, but we're going to do this to be better. That's kind of my thing. Instead of this sucks, period. So, that's just who I am as a person. And if it doesn't work for you, that's totally fine. But be careful. And this isn't just other lost people and grievers. This is people around you. If they are not understanding your grief or understanding what you need from them and they're not respecting it, you can't have that. It is not good for your healing. It's not good for your coping. So you have to be really careful with who you surround yourself with. Make sure they support you, they respect you, they listen to you, they honor you, your wishes, not you. Wouldn't that be nice? So just choose wisely and clean it up if it's not working for you. And you have every right to do that because it's super important, not only to survive what you're going through, but to heal along the way as much as you can and do your absolute best as you navigate life after loss. There's no playbook. And you need to be surrounded by people that help you and not make it worse, because there are people that make it worse. And I eliminated them and I was like, ooh, I don't even think about them. I feel better, just better, not great, just better. So I think that's it. It was a lot, guys, super heavy. But again, my perspective on what worked for me, what my brain did about faith and God and where I'm at and was I chosen? What's my purpose? What do I do with my story? These are just the things that we talked about on this episode. So if you want to go back and listen to it, absolutely. It's the video before this one. Or you can go onto any podcast platform and listen to it just audibly. And like I said, there's no video for it because Mariah's camera didn't work, but most of my other posts on here should have the camera going. We talk about a lot of these things, but this was probably the one that was most centric on God and centric on following your purpose for your pain and digging yourself out of the hole. This is probably the one that we talk about the most. So if you want to hear it, go check it out. Also hit subscribe. So whenever I drop another video, you're notified because I'm doing these breakdowns for all 25 of them and they're coming, I promise. So again, this is my take, not here to offend or coach or fix, but this is what I believe after talking to lots of professionals, lots of religious figures, lots of therapists, lots of other people, and lots of people I respect. And so this is where my journey is in all of these things we talked about in this podcast episode. I'd love to hear comments. Keep it clean, guys. We support everybody here. If you have any insider questions, I can also link Mariah if you want to contact her or hit me up on IG. If you want to message me directly, I'm super active there and you can talk to me if you have any questions about this, but I really hope it helps. I'm sorry that you're here, but I'm glad that you found me and I hope you take care of yourselves, guys. And